Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking something that is probably glowing in the background of your favorite Twitch streamer's room right now.
Oh, definitely. Or, maybe it was the backdrop for the last 3 weddings you went to.
Exactly. We are talking about neon. And uh, and before you roll your eyes and think, okay, we're doing a deep dive on interior design trends.
Right, like home decor.
Yeah, just hold on a second,
Mm.
because the stack of research we have for you today tells a completely different story.
It really does. It's actually a story about a massive identity crisis.
That is exactly it. We're looking at a technology that has undergone this complete psychological rebrand. It's wild when you actually trace the timeline.
It is.
We're talking about something that started as the absolute visual definition of grit. I mean, this was industrial, it was dangerous, it was just loud street noise.
Right.
And somehow it morphed into the ultimate symbol of cozy, curated intimacy.
It's the journey from the dive bar to the nursery, which, honestly, on paper, shouldn't be possible.
Right. I mean, if you told someone in, say, 1940s Las Vegas that one day people would put neon signs above their babies' cribs,
They would have looked at you like you were totally insane.
they would have assumed you were actively trying to burn the house down.
And they wouldn't have been wrong, technically speaking. But that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We aren't just talking about a change in fashion here.
No?
We're talking about a change in technology and really, more importantly, a change in how we perceive light itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're tracing the evolution of neon from a tool of aggressive commerce to a medium of high art and finally to where it is today.
Which is a badge of personal identity.
Exactly.
So let's get into the time machine. We need to go back to what the research calls the age of noise.
Ah, yes.
We are talking the early 20th century.
Oh.
Paris, New York, Vegas. And I think the first thing we need to correct here, because I definitely had this misconception.
What was that?
Just the idea that neon was always seen as cool or, retro.
Oh, definitely not. When neon lighting first hit the streets in the 1910s and 20s, it wasn't retro, it was wildly futuristic,
Right.
but it was also incredibly aggressive. You
Yeah.
really have to remember what cities looked like before this tech arrived.
Dim.
Very dim. Streetlights were dark, signage was just painted wood or maybe metal, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, you have this liquid fire contained in glass.
Liquid fire is such a great description from the sources. And let's get into the science of that for a second, because the research here is it's fascinating.
It really is.
It's not just a colored light bulb we're talking about. This is literal chemistry happening in real time right above your head.
It's elemental,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
To get that classic buzzing red-orange glow,
Yeah.
you are taking a glass tube, vacuum sealing it,
Okay.
and then pumping it full of pure neon gas.
Mm.
Then you hit it with high-voltage electricity. That red color isn't a painted filter on the glass.
Wow.
It's the gas itself igniting and turning into plasma.
And if you wanted blue.
Then you use argon gas, usually with just a tiny drop of mercury inside the tube.
So the streets of 1920s Las Vegas or Times Square weren't just lit up. They were basically open-air chemistry labs suspended above the sidewalk.
Exactly. And because of that, they were really dangerous. We entirely forget this part of the history.
Right, because now it's so safe.
But back then, these signs were extremely high voltage. They ran on massive transformers that hummed. You know that famous neon buzz you hear in old movies?
Oh, yeah, that classic sound.
That's the sound of raw electricity vibrating inside a heavy transformer. It was hot, the glass was incredibly fragile, and if it broke, you had actual gas escaping into the air.
Which perfectly explains why it started outdoors. You did not bring this stuff inside your house.
Never. It was strictly for the street. And specifically, the sources point out it was for commerce.
Right.
They call it the language of nightlife, but I'd argue it was even more specific than that. It was the language of vice and sales.
Yeah, the signs were all liquor, girls, vacancy, open.
It was shouting at you.
It was screaming. Visual pollution, really. In fact, the sources mentioned there were huge debates in cities back then about whether neon was actively ruining the architecture.
Yeah, it was widely considered tacky, loud, industrial, low class. It was strictly a tool to grab your attention by the throat and drag you into a store or a bar.
So, okay, you have this industrial screaming tool. It's deeply associated with the night, with the gritty street, with selling cheap things.
Right.
How on earth do we make the leap from that to an upscale art gallery? Because looking at the timeline, that seems like the most counterintuitive jump possible.
It really is a massive pivot. I like to call this phase the artistic hijack.
I love that.
It happens roughly around the 1960s and 70s. And it perfectly illustrates how artists think differently than the rest of us. They looked at this medium, which remember, everyone else just saw as commercial trash.
Right, just tacky signage.
Exactly. But the artist saw a medium for pure light.
It's total recontextualization.
Precisely. Think about it. If you see a neon sign on a street corner that says beer, your brain immediately processes it as an advertisement.
You filter it out.
You completely filter it out. But if you take that exact same technology, the fragile glass, the gas, the buzzing transformer,
Yeah.
and you twist it into a shape or a cryptic phrase that isn't selling anything at all, and then you stick it in a stark, quiet, white gallery room.
Suddenly you have to look at it differently.
Suddenly the viewer has to deal with the light itself.
It completely strips away the commerce.
It forces you to look at the medium. The light becomes the message. Artists started using neon to write abstract sentences or to create purely sculptural forms.
And the research highlights a really key shift here, the move from signage to statement.
There is a crucial distinction, signage versus statement.
Right.
When a store owner buys a neon sign, they are buying a utility. They want foot traffic. But when an artist bends neon, they are creating an atmosphere. They realize that neon has this completely unique quality. It doesn't just sit flat on the wall. It actually occupies the room.
Ah, that's the presence concept the notes mention.
Yes, presence.
Yeah.
Think about a traditional painting. A painting is passive. It absorbs light. You literally have to shine a light on a painting just to see it.
Sure.
But neon is active. It is the light. It projects outwards into the space. It actually changes the color of the air between you and the wall. It physically reaches out and touches your retina.
It's almost invasive in a way.
It is incredibly invasive.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why it's so powerful for art. You cannot ignore it. It demands your absolute engagement.
There's a deep psychological angle here too, right? The notes talk about emotional tension.
Yes, this is one of my absolute favorite takeaways from the research.
Yeah.
There's a very specific tension that happens in our brains when you combine light and language.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, we are hardwired to pay attention to light. It's biological.
Yeah.
Light means safety. It means a fire. It means the sun.
Right, basic survival.
Exactly. And at the same time, we are socially wired to process language. We can't help but read words when we see them.
So when you write a word in light, you're basically double tapping the brain.
You're hitting both centers at once. A printed sign on cardboard saying, "I love you," is just text. But a glowing red neon sign saying, "I love you," feels like it has a pulse.
It feels alive.
It carries an emotional weight that ink on paper just cannot match.
It's the difference between reading a sentence in a book and hearing someone shout it at you across a room. Or maybe whisper it, depending on the color and the context.
That's a brilliant way to put it. And that emotional weight is exactly what paved the way for the next phase in the timeline.
Migration indoors.
Right. Once the artist proved that neon could be emotional and thought-provoking, not just a cheap commercial trick, the door was finally open for it to come inside.
But wait, we still have the danger factor to deal with here. We just established that old school traditional neon is hot, it's fragile, and it's buzzing with high voltage.
Very true.
You can't just put an industrial high-voltage transformer in a boutique hotel lobby without a massive insurance liability.
You really can't. And that is why, for a long time, neon art was strictly reserved for galleries or very wealthy, high-end collectors who could afford the steep maintenance and the risk.
So how did it get to everyone else?
The migration to the masses, to our modern bedrooms and our weddings, that required a massive technological revelation.
Enter the LED.
Enter the LED. This is honestly the unsexy part of the story, but it actually matters the most. The aesthetic of neon D.
Yeah.
That beautiful, continuous line of light, the glow.
Yeah.
It had to be liberated from the dangerous glass tube.
So how does the new stuff actually work?
Okay.
Because looking at it, it still looks exactly like neon, but it clearly isn't gas and glass anymore.
Right. Modern neon, the stuff you buy online for your wedding reception or your home office, is usually just flexible silicone tubing packed with tiny LEDs.
Okay.
It's completely cool to the touch. It runs on very low voltage, like 12 or 24 volts. You can literally drop it on the floor and it won't shatter.
It's the total democratization of the glow.
Completely. It removed every single barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you didn't need a master glass blower who spent 10 years apprenticing in a sweaty workshop just to bend a tube for you.
And you don't need a high-voltage electrician to install it.
Exactly. You could just order it, plug it into a normal wall outlet, and boom, you have the vibe.
And this is where the cultural timeline gets really interesting to me. Because once the tech became safe and cheap, the location shifted rapidly.
It exploded.
We saw it move from high-end galleries straight to boutique hotels. Then it trickled down to hipster cafes, then to weddings, and finally to the most private, intimate space of all, the bedroom.
It's a classic trickle-down effect of what we consider cool. Hotels and upscale restaurants used it first because they wanted to borrow that artistic credibility from the galleries.
Right.
They wanted their lobby to feel like a modern art installation. They wanted that urban edge, but they needed it to be sanitized.
Sanitized urban edge. That is the perfect description of basically every modern coffee shop I've ever been to.
It really is. It's industrial chic.
Yeah.
You want the exposed brick wall and the glowing neon sign, but you absolutely want the comfortable air conditioning and the oat milk latte.
You want the aesthetic of the gritty city, entirely without the actual grit.
Exactly. And then the final step, it moves to personal identity. This is the era we are currently in. The research calls it the sanctuary era.
Which is such a massive shift from the age of noise.
It's the biggest shift of all. We completely stopped buying neon to sell products to other people, and we started buying neon to sell ourselves.
Or at least to reflect ourselves to the world.
Right, it's personal branding.
It is. If you look at a site like heartneon.com, which the source material uses as a really good case study for this modern industry,
Yeah, that's a great example.
you see exactly what's happening. People aren't just buying generic shapes or an open sign. They are deeply customizing everything.
They were writing their own names.
Their names, their favorite obscure song lyrics, inside jokes with their partners.
It's like the modern illuminated version of carving your initials into a tree,
Yeah.
but way brighter and significantly more expensive.
And much more visible. I mean, we live in a digital age where our backgrounds actually matter. We are on Zoom calls, we are on Twitch, we are recording TikToks.
Your room is your set.
Exactly. Your room is a broadcasting set. And Neon allows you to instantly build a set.
That connects right back to that presence concept we discussed earlier. In a world completely dominated by flat screens, neon provides actual depth.
It anchors the physical space.
It does. The research touches heavily on this idea that we are actively craving tangible atmosphere.
Yeah.
We stare at flat pixels all day long.
Yeah.
Pixels have no depth. But neon is physical, tangible light. It changes the mood of a room instantly. You turn it on, and the room just feels different. It feels vibey.
I really hate that word, but it is accurate.
It's the only word that truly fits. It creates a specific vibe. And more often than not, it creates a very nostalgic vibe.
Let's dig into that nostalgia for a minute, because I think that's the invisible glue holding this entire cultural trend together.
I agree.
Why are we so deeply obsessed with this specific look? Most of the people buying these LED signs today weren't even alive in the 1950s or the 80s when real neon was everywhere.
It's what sociologists might call anemoia.
Anemoia.
Yeah, it's nostalgia for a time you never actually knew or lived through.
Mm-hmm.
But practically speaking, it's also just cultural osmosis. We have all consumed decades of movies, music videos, and photography where neon serves as the ultimate signifier of cool.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner is a perfect example. Miami Vice, old gritty noir films.
Mm.
Neon is the universal lighting of drama. It's the lighting of the dangerous city at night.
Right.
So when you put that glowing light in your living room, you're essentially borrowing a tiny piece of that rich cinematic history. You are making your everyday life feel a little bit more like a movie.
You're directing your own scene.
Exactly.
Okay.
You are casting yourself as the main character, and that custom neon sign is your personal title card.
It's so interesting, though. We're using this cinematic lighting, which, again, originated from the noisy, dirty, aggressive city street to create these calm, safe, quiet spaces.
It is a massive contradiction.
I was looking at some of the photo examples in the research, and people use these lights in meditation corners. They use them in actual nurseries. Imagine a sign saying, "Dream big," in soft, pink, glowing letters right above a sleeping baby.
It is deeply ironic. We've taken the aggressive visual language of the strip club and the dive bar, and we've completely sanitized it for the nursery.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks volumes about the power of the medium itself. Light is inherently neutral. The context is what gives it its meaning.
Talk to me more about that, the medium versus the message.
Well, Marshall McLuhan famously said the medium is the message. But in the specific case of neon, the medium has actually overpowered and outlived its original message.
How so?
The original message used to be very simple. Come in here and spend your money.
Yeah.
But the medium, that glowing, colored line of light, was always inherently beautiful.
We just couldn't see the beauty because we were too distracted by the aggressive sales pitch.
Precisely. So once the artists and the LED tech took away the sales pitch,
We were left with pure light.
pure light and pure color, and human beings just love colored light. It triggers something very primal in our brains. It's exactly like sitting around a warm campfire. It naturally draws us in.
So, in a way, modern LED neon is basically just a high-tech campfire for our apartments.
A campfire that you can instantly control with a remote and change to purple whenever you want. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
It perfectly satisfies that primal human need for a glowing focal point in our shelter.
I want to go back to the technology for a second because I feel like there's a trade-off here that we haven't fully discussed yet.
Okay.
We talked about how the old glass stuff buzzed and was incredibly dangerous, and the new silicone stuff is silent and completely safe. But do we lose something fundamental in that trade?
That's the classic purist's argument, and honestly, it's a very valid one. There is a real romance to the imperfection of authentic glass neon.
Yeah.
The way the gas flickers slightly inside the tube. The way the heavy transformer hums in the background. It feels organic and alive. LED, on the other hand, is perfect.
Too perfect.
Maybe. It's completely uniform, it's dead silent, it's a little bit sterile, if we're being honest.
It's basically the difference between listening to a vinyl record and an MP3.
That is the absolute perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Real glass neon is vinyl. It has cracks and pops and a tangible warmth to it. LED neon is the MP3.
Right.
It's crisp, it's infinitely portable, it's incredibly convenient, and because of that, it's absolutely everywhere.
But the MP3 is what allowed music to go places that vinyl never ever could.
Exactly. You can't take a delicate turntable on a morning run, and you certainly can't safely hang a heavy, fragile glass neon sign on flimsy drywall in a cheap rental apartment.
Now, you'd lift the wall down or start a fire.
Exactly. The MP3 and the LED democratized the entire experience. It meant that neon didn't have to be a luxury item or a fire hazard anymore. It could just be an accessible piece of decoration.
And that mass accessibility is exactly what led to this current explosion we're seeing. I mean, you literally cannot scroll through Instagram or Pinterest without seeing one of these custom signs.
It's become a visual shorthand. It says, I have good taste. Or at least it says, I am hyper-aware of current cultural aesthetics.
Yeah.
And because modern companies like heartneon.com allow for that deep level of customization, it solves the traditional problem of mass production.
Meaning you aren't just buying the exact same mass-produced IKEA print that everyone else has in their living room.
Exactly. You are buying your specific words in your chosen font in your favorite color,
It's mass customization.
which is really the defining feature of the modern economy right now. We all desperately want to be unique, but we want to do it together.
So where does this actually go from here? We've traced it from the dirty street to the pristine gallery to the cozy bedroom. Is there another step in this evolution? Or have we officially reached peak neon?
It's really hard to say for sure. Cultural trends are always cyclical. We might eventually see a severe backlash where people just want total darkness and minimalism again.
That wouldn't surprise me.
But I do think the deep integration of expressive light into our daily architecture is here to stay. We are constantly getting better at controlling our personal environments.
Right, we have smart bulbs that change color. We have ambient LED strips behind our TVs.
Exactly. Neon is really just the loudest, most specific version of that desire for control.
It's the centerpiece of the room.
It's the visual anchor. And as long as we continue to live our lives inside boxes, apartments, houses, corporate offices, we're always going to want to punch holes in those rigid walls with light. We want to open up the confined space, and neon does exactly that.
It adds a window where there isn't one.
A window into a mood, if not a window into the actual outside world.
I love that phrasing, a window into a mood. So just looking back, we've tracked this really incredible journey today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started with raw chemistry, neon, argon, high voltage electricity, literally screaming at people on the busy streets of the 1920s.
The age is noise.
Right. Then the artists completely hijacked it. They stripped away the dirty commerce, and they left only the raw emotion. They turned a sign that said, open into a sculpture that meant hope.
The age of art.
And finally, the technology caught up with the art. The fragile glass became flexible silicone, the dangerous gas became safe diodes, and the hazard became a comfort. And we successfully brought the gritty city inside our homes.
The age of sanctuary.
It really is a complete 180-degree inversion of its original purpose. And I actually want to leave our listeners with a thought that popped into my head while you were talking earlier about the the scream of those early commercial signs,
So let's hear it.
we establish clearly that neon started as a desperate way to shout over the overwhelming noise of the industrial city. It was an aggressive plea for attention, just screaming, "Look at
He
me!"
was entirely aggressive.
But now, today, we use that exact same visual medium to create a sense of calm. We use it to signal to ourselves that we are relaxed. We use it to quietly whisper to the world who we are.
It's the exact same light, but with a totally different human intent.
So the question I'm left with is this. Did the medium itself eventually change the message? Or did we just change what we desperately needed the light to say to us?
That is the ultimate paradox here. Maybe we just finally learned how to appreciate and listen to the light once the sales pitch was turned off.
So to everyone listening, if you happen to be sitting near a glowing neon sign right now, take a second to really look at it. Ask yourself, is it still screaming? Or have we finally taught the light to whisper?
I think in the right hands we taught it to sing.
I really like that. We taught it to sing. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today.
It was always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Keep glowing.